The Eagle has landed.
We're home.
Man on the moon.
What?
Okay, we're going to be busy for a minute.
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're counting down our picks for those television firsts that had a long-lasting effect on the world.
I know that we will succeed, and I pledge to you that we will not let the American public down.
Number 12, television pregnancies and births.
Honey, no.
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
Why didn't you tell me?
Why, you didn't give me a chance.
Are you kidding?
No.
It's me!
Although a rather obscure show titled Mary Kay and Johnny trailblazed the idea of married couples sharing beds and expecting kids on TV, it was I Love Lucy that really captured the public's attention. This was due largely to the expert comic timing of not only Lucille Ball, but of the entire cast.
Ricky, this is it.
This is it! Let's go!
The second season episode, Lucy Goes to the Hospital, makes the entire affair a comedy of errors. But it's also important to note that the network worried about how the pregnancy would go down with an audience.
She's gonna have a baby.
Yes, I sensed that. Will you please take Mrs. Ricardo to room 354?
Oh, you will have to say goodbye to your wife down here. You're not allowed upstairs.
It was a different time, after all, but it's still remarkable to analyze how television firsts fall in line with expanding social mores. Number 11, reality TV revolution. It wasn't specifically referred to as reality television back then, but shows like Candid Camera and the first televised Miss America pageant helped blur the lines between televised fantasy and everyday life.
This is our special for today. You know what it's called?
I give.
It's called the Candid Camera Special.
It's called the what?
The Candid Camera Special. We only give it to people who are on television.
These programs helped lay the groundwork for television audiences to eventually accept the reality TV blueprint we all know so well today.
I left Michigan in search of a painting career here in New York, and I started working with a partner. Now we have a company called Gouda, named after our dog.
I'm with a major rap group now. I went on tour, I went to Arsenio, I just did everything right in the beginning. But now, starting back from my own, I have to start all over again. So that's about it.
These schematics were largely drawn up by the MTV generation, thanks to hits like The Real World and Road Rules, while CBS absolutely changed the game with Survivor back in 2000. And the rest, as they say, is history.
Life is hell, but I'm swell. Bye-bye blues.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Number 10, television gets some color. The first color television sets and broadcasts occurred during the early 1950s, but were actually unsuccessful, at first anyway, at winning over audiences.
The following program is brought to you in living color on NBC.
The variety show premiere aired in certain CBS markets in 1951, while commercially produced sets for home use were manufactured 3 years later.
CBS presents this program in color.
Meanwhile, it would be Disney's anthology program Wonderful World of Color that helped ease the public's acceptance of this newfangled technology. We, as humans, are sometimes fearful of change, just as the radio industry was wary of television's growing influence. The advent of color proved beyond any doubt that TV was here to stay.
No, doctor. There's nothing wrong with me.
That's what they all say.
Number 9, Star Trek's interracial kiss. The 1960s were a period of great social upheaval, and this sentiment of change was reflected on the small screen. Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood helped break down barriers of discrimination with an episode that showcased its host sharing a small wade pool with an African-American police officer.
So, to have me playing a police officer, I was tremendously hesitant. But there was something reluctant about Fred to let go. And I said, Mr. Rogers, I would be very happy to be on your program.
Meanwhile, Star Trek helped push things further from a romantic perspective with regards to the iconic lip lock between stars Nichelle Nichols and William Shatner.
I'm so frightened, Captain. I'm so very frightened.
That's the way they want you to feel. Makes them think that they're alive.
I know it. But I wish I could stop trembling.
Try not to think of them.
Nichols claimed in her 1994 autobiography that she and co-star William Shatner intentionally flubbed lines during shooting. This was so that the more explicit take, not one edited and obscured in camera, would be used for the final product.
But I'm not afraid. I am not afraid.
Number 8, The Beatles and Elvis on The Ed Sullivan Show. The list of iconic performances from The Ed Sullivan Show is long, particularly when it comes to the early days of rock music.
Oh, please, say to me, you let me be your man. And please, say to me, you let me hold your hand.
This was despite the host's initial reticence to book such shaggy long hairs on his program. Still, entire generations of fans were able to remember where they were back when the Beatles and Elvis Presley performed for Ed Sullivan.
I'd like to thank all the millions of wonderful people that are watching in tonight, friends. And I'd like to say this, until we meet you again, may God bless you as He's blessed me. Thank you very much.
The variety show featured exciting live music on a weekly basis, broadcasting electricity through the airwaves. Meanwhile, the boundary-pushing sexuality of this new thing called rock and roll was deemed dangerous by some critics, a force for moral decay and degradation. But fans loved it and returned to The Ed Sullivan Show for many years to come.
And I love me come a funeral pyre. Come on, baby, light my fire.
Number 7, the first scripted finale. The Fugitive television series only ran for a few years back in the early 60s, a time when small-screen stories were primarily episodic. However, the compelling mystery at the heart of The Fugitive meant that fans at home greatly desired closure to their story.
Of course, possible she could have called somebody. She could have. Helen had the phone company keep track of all our toll calls for tax reasons. If she called anyone, there might just be a record.
Nearly 80 million people watched the finale, hoping to see Dr. Kimball clear his name, find the mysterious one-armed man, and uncover the truth behind his wife's murder.
This is Dr. Richard Kimball. See, Miss Carlyle told me once that she wouldn't know Dr. Kimball if she saw him. Lucky you arrived when you did. Dr. Kimball and I have to be leaving shortly.
This was a huge deal that almost didn't even happen. Showrunner Leonard Goldberg apparently heard that network executives felt, quote, surprised at the time that viewers at home actually cared about these characters enough to warrant a finale.
Dr. Kimball, how do you feel now that you're a free man?
How do you think he feels?
What are your immediate plans, Doctor?
Well, I'd see some of my family and go back to work, I guess.
Well, what's the first thing you plan to do?
Get out of here.
Number 6, MTV begins. The MTV network is still around today, and much of its programming retains that youth focus which defined its earliest years. It's difficult for those who weren't there to describe how sharply MTV eventually focused upon its impressionable audience.
In my mind and in my car, we can't rewind, we've gone too far.
The era of the music video was officially upon us, and it was now up to the music industry to keep up with demand. Soon, style mattered just as much, if not more, than substance, and a new crop of MTV-friendly groups like Duran Duran and Madonna made the most out of the medium. MTV also led the pack with its original programming, from Headbangers Ball and 120 Minutes to its original news and entertainment. Said simply, we wanted our MTV. Number 5, Vietnam War coverage. It was the conflict that aired nightly into American homes, bringing all of the controversy and violence to the dinner table.
What the hell does that do to a 19-year-old kid?
A 19-year-old kid shouldn't have been here.
The Vietnam War saw a then unmatched number of accredited journalists and combat photographers alike on the ground, capturing daily details about what was going on abroad. This television coverage added more fuel to the fire of protest and discourse in the United States, echoing the civil unrest and arguments surrounding the validity of Vietnam.
That the only rational way out then will be to negotiate, not as victors, but as an honorable people who lived up to their pledge to defend democracy and did the best they could.
Additionally, the war coverage showcased a shocking amount of footage that would have probably been deemed too gruesome to be included in a fictional TV program. Yet there it was for all to see, hear, and digest, for better or worse.
I don't think our broadcast had a principal effect on that, but I think it was a straw on the back of a lot of indications that he was unhappy with the progress of the war and thought he himself ought to get out.
Number 4, Apollo 11, the moon landing.
It does seem appropriate that as man is about to set foot on the moon for the first time in the history of mankind, that we should honor this event and celebrate it with music.
The cynicism of the 1970s hadn't yet set in back in July of 1969. This was when the Apollo 11 space shuttle mission took off into the stars, landing on the surface of the moon on the 20th of that month. The major television networks, for their part, leaned heavily into the event, with each planning special programming to coincide with the landing.
Armstrong is on the moon. Neil Armstrong, 38-year-old American, standing on the surface of the moon.
The eyes of just about every American were glued to their television sets at this time. They were greeted by everything from Duke Ellington's big band jazz to science fiction legends Rod Serling and Isaac Asimov.
I'm very much honored indeed to be invited here today to help celebrate this great occasion. Matter of fact, I'm so inspired that I think I shall attempt to make my debut as a vocalist with Moon Maiden. How about that?
It was a giant leap for television kind that felt almost as big as Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong.
I wonder just what there is to add to that.
Number 3, 24-hour news.
This news service will be called the Cable News Network and will program continually updated half-hour segments of national news, business news, sports, and features 24 hours a day.
Information is a click away for all of us today, and this availability didn't occur in a vacuum. Ted Turner's cable news network changed the game back in 1980 when it kickstarted the era of a 24-hour news cycle. No longer did people need to wait for their morning paper to read the headlines. Instead, these headlines were broadcast almost as quickly as they occurred, thanks to the efforts of on-call news professionals getting the scoop.
And to feed from various points where stories are breaking in the world and bring the material right here into Atlanta, where we'll put it on the air as fast as we can. I think we're going to get a lot more international news on the air. I think we're going to get it on a lot faster. You're going to get the opportunity to see a lot more of the way things take place in the world on CNN.
It wasn't an easy road at first. Slow news days do exist after all, and one could argue that 24-hour news also paved the way for TV tabloids and shock programs. However, for news addicts with FOMO for the info, CNN was a godsend.
The net is made up of some 12,000 individual computer networks. Internet began back in 1969. It was a tool of the Pentagon. But nowadays, just about anyone with a computer and a modem can join in, usually for a nominal fee.
Number 2, we now break for a commercial.
Hello, Mary. Why, what's the matter?
Nothing. I'm just sitting here waiting for my mother.
How about a bottle of Coca-Cola?
Oh, thank you, Mr. Tompkins.
Hey, remember when you didn't have to sit through commercials at the movies? Or during your streaming services? Or at the gas station? Yeah, we do too. Which is why we sort of envy those who lived in an era prior to these intrusive attempts on our wallets. The very first paid television commercial was ordered by the Bulova Watch Company, which booked airtime during a July 1st, 1941 baseball game.
America runs on Bulova time.
The ad only aired in the New York market, as the Brooklyn Dodgers took on the Philadelphia Phillies. However, the genie was out of the bottle, and soon, companies everywhere expanded their advertising budgets to include television alongside radio and printed media.
Yes, stay on the beam with energy-packed Sunbeam Red.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. Number 1, the World's Fair.
I walked my feet off taking pictures. I remember going through the Court of Nations where they had huge statues in front of each nation's building.
Supposedly, those who were at the dawn of cinema were legitimately frightened by a famous shot from 1903's The Great Train Robbery. The scene showcased actor Justice D. Barnes firing his gun down the camera lens in full close-up. We suspect that similar trepidation was also paid to the dawn of television way back at the 1939 World's Fair. It was here that RCA debuted their televisions to the public, after initially giving out advertising brochures to sales professionals.
There's no question that the fair
got people to think positively, and the future would be better. And that was the whole purpose.
This World's Fair was also televised and gave rise to NBC ordering regularly scheduled programming. Visitors could see firsthand how this new medium worked. Ground floor participants to the television revolution.
My first look at television was in the 39 Fair. They had an exhibit set up where they would photograph the people outside and then electronically show the picture inside.
What's your most nostalgic television memory? Let us know in the comments.
What was the big deal about television? I think on that note I was wrong.
Did you enjoy this video? Check out these other clips from WatchMojo, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.